this morning. Now, it wasn't officially role play. However, I don't mind telling you, Mark, we finished our back and forth before office hours was over. And so I for sure called in to tell Chris what we had done to each other or for each other, depending on how you
Yeah,
look at it.
yeah.
He got a kick out of it. So
Good.
it was very, very funny and very fun. Robin, thank you so much for being here. Mark and Shara, thank you for being here. Cheryl, thank you for being here. We're so glad that you guys are here. Emily, thank you for being here. I'm not trying to leave you out at all, my friend.
Thank
We
you for being here, Mike.
my pleasure. We are going to certainly we're going to put this in a replay as well. So we're going to treat it um, as such, and we appreciate you guys for engaging with us and showing up here. So what we'd love for you to do is just kick everything off and let us know who you are and where you're from. I'm going to put Mike from Oklahoma because that's my name and that's where I live. And I'm not going to talk about any sort of parade that happened today that I did not get to attend um, out of respect for one of my friends who's on the call. Actually, out of respect for everyone, right? Oh, Emily, you got some love for your hair. Robin said,
Yes, thank you, Robin.
fantastic. Thank you guys for putting that in the chat. And if you're watching on replay,
Mhm.
let us know in the comments, who are you and where are you watching from? We are so excited to have you guys with us today. Again, this is our third installment of Three C's of a Thriving Workplace. And we're going to use some content from this book called Communication Culture Volume 1, and also from Exactly What to Say from our workbooks. And then, of course, we've got some role play cards out here as well that we're going to be utilizing as well. And we're going to be focusing on the perspective changers. Because regardless of what kind of environment you work in, um, there are lots of opportunities for us to get communication wrong and or even a little bit off center. There's a lot of different ways for us to do that. And so the entire purpose of the conversation today is to really level up and see how can we bring these three C's that make up a thriving workplace? How can we bring that to the forefront? And then what can we do to turn up the dial in a positive way? So, Emily, would you like to introduce the three C's for us?
Yeah, so the three C's, well, I do feel like we'd be doing everyone a disservice if Mike didn't introduce the first of the three C's, because I'm not going to sing. So
The first of the three C's is culture. And I don't know how you hear culture, but when I hear it, the definition for culture is the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. But I only hear it one way. And it's just this song that I heard about probably in the 1990s when Montel, the way we do what we do and the way we allow it to be done. It's this is how we do it. Like no matter who you are, like it's
yeah.
really hard for me to say that line. Even it's one of the first things in the book, and it's hard for me just to read it. And when I do, not if, but when I do record the audiobook, hopefully sometime Q3, that's for sure going in there unless I'm going to have to pay to put it in there, and then I may leave it out. So of the three C's, number one is culture.
Yes, thank you. And then we've got connection, and connection starts when curiosity is coming before judgment. And so we talk a lot about curiosity here. I think, well, everyone on the call knows that both Mike and I are exactly what to say certified guides. And so definitely focusing that communication on culture or on culture, yes, but also on curiosity and from a place of curiosity before jumping to judgment so that you can really create that connection with your team and with the people that you're communicating with. And then the third C is clarity. And that's all about intention, intentional communication, communicating purposefully and predictably so that others can act with certainty.
And that's something no matter what
So,
industry
yeah,
you're in. No, I'm going to throw it right back to you. No matter what
no,
industry you're in, I mean, culture, connection, and clarity. And a lot of times we especially miss on the last thing because we're not even thinking about the first two things. We just think, okay, this is my
Mhm.
agenda. I've got to say what I want to say and then get it done. And then I can say, this is what we talked about. And then you leave the conversation and someone's looking like, what just happened? Like, and then someone who's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
don't worry. I've worked with Mike for quite a while. What he meant to say was this, but then if you didn't bring your interpreter to work that day, then it kind of loses some of the punch for it. I'm throwing it right back to you, Emily. What else do you think about those
Yeah.
key things?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it comes back to that, like maintaining curiosity so that you gain the context for the content. Otherwise, you just have noise, so that you're able to really have that clarity. And we talked a little bit about this in our first session together, but when you're talking with somebody that is like so wildly certain about themselves and about the topic that they're talking about, maybe you're a bit like me, but it kind of makes you uncertain of that person. Like, oh, they're very sure about themselves. And like, I don't even know if everything that they said was accurate. And so having that context before the content is allowing you to be certain and also allowing the people that you're communicating with to be certain in you and certain in the conversation and in what we're talking about. And so, like Mike said, I think culture and connection are ones that we're hitting on, pretty consistently, especially as leaders. But clarity is, I mean, I think they're all just as important as one another, and I don't think you can do one without the other.
Absolutely. We think that they're inextricably linked, and
Hmm.
that doesn't mean that they're all, to your point, Emily, it doesn't mean they're all exactly the same, but where we as leaders get stuck as we just leave something in our blind spots, right? We're not actually checking to communicate and then checking for clarity. We're just saying, this is what I said. And I heard Phil Jones on a video that was released this morning. He said, people don't actually hear the thing that you say until you've said it 25 times. And then in my
That
mind,
is
he said
wild.
25 times. And I'm like, really? 25? And then I thought probably you could ask my wife, like, how many times well, maybe you shouldn't ask my wife, like whatever the thing is, but it's that kind of a thing. We assume
Yeah.
communication happened because we said it once or a couple of times. And then sometimes we'll come back with, don't make me repeat myself. Listen, everything we talk about here for a thriving workplace, it also is going to be a contributing factor to a thriving home as well. It works in the conference room, but also works at home in the living room and the other rooms of the house. So it's really important for us. It's difficult to say, well, okay, I'm work Mike and then I'm home Mike. The goal for us is to have every conversation. We want to have better conversations at work, at home, and in your community, both online and off. And you can't do that and say less and say, well, it only matters. The culture only matters, or the connection only matters, or not even checking for clarity. And Mark put in the comments here 25 times. I mean, exactly. Like it's one of those things. I'm not gonna lie. I listened to it a couple of times. The video I think was just about. It was under 2 minutes long, and he probably said the sentence that he said probably 6 or 8 times. And he said, "You've got it now, right?" And then he said, "No, you don't, because I didn't say it 25
Mhm.
times." And again, the issue for us in leadership is we instead of communicating to become great communicators, we've traded it for efficient communication, and that sets us up for lots of misunderstanding, for lots of garbled communication, for lots of
Yeah.
things that really not only don't set the workplace up to thrive, but really we're setting us up to not succeed in so many ways. So we need to focus on effective communication, not just efficient communication. Emily,
Mhm.
in the organizations you've worked with, what's something that you've seen where we've gotten it? Maybe we didn't totally get it wrong, but we got it just a little bit rushed, or we got it because we weren't focusing on those three C's. We're not going to spend the entire time on this, but it's really good in context. When we weren't
Yeah.
focusing with those three C's, that there was something that we missed, and it's going to cost us both in people and in processes. It's going to cost us all the way around. What's something you've seen in your experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, with any sort of lack of communication or the context in a situation, you're going to have those missing pieces. And the team that I work with, most often we always say, you slow down to speed up. So taking that time to pause in after an interaction with a patient and making sure that you've got everything documented. Um, we had a situation that, even just last week that we didn't have everything documented. And we have multiple clinics. So that's another thing too. When you throw in that part of your culture that you have, that you're an expanded clinic, you're not just one singular location. And so without proper documentation, you end up with somebody's devices in a different location than the patient.
Mm.
Um, and so, yeah, not having that clarity around what's going on. And, it's that lack of connection too, because then you don't have that intentional conversation. You've got a situation where maybe there's a conversation between two people on the team, but not with everyone and not on, on where it matters, like not on the patient file. Um, and so, yeah, I think these three C's of a thriving workplace are across the board. I mean, you could use them anywhere. And like you said, in the home life too. Um, it's yeah,
Well,
all
I mean,
super valuable.
it's as though we brainstormed for weeks to come up with three C's that might work both at work and at home or something. Like it was easy to identify those, and the implementation is
Yeah,
kind of the song that never ends, right? It's one of those sort of things.
absolutely.
I'm going to ask a question. I'd love for you to answer in the chat. This is specifically when you're talking about, we're talking about feedback. Okay. The whole idea for today is around feedback. So, my question for you, both as a person who's giving feedback, person who's receiving feedback, in order for the feedback to feel positive, there's two different kinds. One is do better. The other is doing good. Or in the exactly what to say world, it's LBs and NTs. What I like best, what I'll do better next time. So my question
Mhm.
for you, everyone who's here in the chat, and then also if you're watching on replay, put it in the comments. What do you think the ratio needs to be for good things and do betters, doing goods, doing betters, LBs, NTs, whatever you want, however you want to frame it? What do you think the ratio needs to be for it to be a positive experience for the person receiving the feedback? That's where I take my drink of water
Mm.
and
Ooh,
look to see. Okay, uh, Cheryl says 20-1. Okay, which does kind of fall in line with what Phil said about hearing something 25 times, right? That makes sense.
yeah, yeah,
Mark says LBs like it.
like this.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, most people think that if I tell you one thing you did good and then one thing you need to do better, well, it's equal. One for me, one for you. It's not. It's not equal. It
Hmm.
certainly doesn't feel equal to the person who is receiving the feedback. Um, when I was working on the book, I did lots of prep, lots of study, and I was looking at different things. And there's a tremendous book called "How Full Is Your Bucket," and it talks about POWs from the Korean War and what they experienced. And it's a tremendous read. I'm not a fast reader, and it takes me about just under an hour to read it. I try to read it through once a quarter, but at least a couple of times a year because it really helps me in my communication at work, at home, in the community. And as I read that, I wrote chapter 41 of my book. And Robin, I appreciate your comment here. It depends on who's saying it and what they're saying. Experiential is completely different than judgmental. Absolutely, completely
Yeah,
understand that.
100%.
Completely agree
Hmm.
with that. We talked quite a bit about that. Really, am I being curious? Am I being critical? We talked about that last week in
Yeah.
session number two. Um, and really, all of that and what you just said, Robin, all of that really goes back to what I believe is the most powerful three-letter word of the English language, and it's FOR. And whenever I know someone is for me, they have a different platform in my life. Versus if someone who couldn't pick me out of a lineup, I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, and they're ripping me on social media or in the back of the room where I'm doing a talk, like whatever, that's fine. What we say is, hey, if you wouldn't take advice from someone, then don't take their criticism to heart. Yeah, that sounds great, like on a bumper sticker or on a something you'd post on social media. But when it feels like it's directed at you, that's not nearly as simple. So we're talking about in the workplace. So we're talking about the relationships that we have, hopefully as teammates, not just as coworkers. And so in chapter 41, I'm talking about this, and there are three ratios that completely rebooted my communication: a 3-to-1 ratio, a 5-to-1 ratio, and a 7-to-1 ratio. 3-to-1, that means three doing goods to one do better. That's still negative. It still feels negative to the person who's receiving it. 5-to-1, it's neutral. 5-to-1 is just now like we're treading water, if you use a swimming analogy. Like it's not even that we're swimming laps, it's that we're treading water. It takes 7-to-1. Seven attaboys, seven attagirls to one do better to be a positive exchange. Now, that blows my mind, right? That's such a high number. And I'm not trying to turn this into a math class, but when I teach this live, lots of people say, okay, so Mike, are you telling me if I've got three things that I need for you to do better, then I've got to come up with, okay, carry the one times the two, whatever. Then I've got to come up with what, 21 positive things? And the answer to that is no, you don't have to do anything. Dot, dot, dot. But what kind of relationship do you want on the other side of the feedback? That's the question. Is it just so you can say the thing that you want to say, or it's an argument that you're trying to win so you can be right, or whatever that feeling is? Um, or is the goal understanding? Is the goal clarity? Is the goal connection? Like, what are you actually trying to achieve? Um, this really hit home for me. One night, I have three children. One of them got more than one ticket, and I'm going to leave the rest of the story out. They got more than one ticket on the way home from wherever they were going, and by the time, and they called my wife, their mom, doing my best to keep all of the names out of to just say, hey, I got pulled over and I ended up with X amount of tickets. It was more than one, less than 100. So they got less than 100 tickets in one night. And so my wife came and told me that, and I'm like, okay, awesome. And then I thought a whole bunch of other things that I didn't bother saying. Then when that kid came home, instead of me just ripping into them for a whole lot of stuff I was thinking, I said this. I said, low voice, I love you. I'm glad you're home. We'll talk tomorrow. And then we talked tomorrow. I got a nap. Everybody felt a little bit better. But one thing that really, really helped is it helped me because over the next couple of weeks, I got a chance to see this particular kid a lot more because they got to go to church, go to school, and then come home. Like that's kind of what we got to see a lot of that. But what happened is I was thinking about these ratios and I started becoming a a better communicator at home. And whenever that kid came in on time at curfew, I started recognizing that kid for being home on time. And I mentioned I have two other kids. It also changed the way that I engage with the other kids. Now, this isn't a parenting class, right? What I'm saying is when you talk about feedback, if your feedback is not designed to build up and encourage, then it's not really feedback, it's target practice. At least that's how it feels to the person who's receiving it. Now, all feedback's not created equal. And what I'm not suggesting is you say, okay, pumpkin, everything's going to be okay. You didn't do anything wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Because you can't do anything that way. You can't leverage that as part of your culture. It's not part of your practice. It's not part of your communication. There's no way that that's doable and sustainable, right? What I'm saying though is so often we think, well, I've only got 3 minutes for my stand-up meeting, so I don't have time to name anything that was good. I've just got to have time to identify what was wrong or broken, and then here's how we're going to fix it. And then we dive right into it. I have some more to say about that, but before I dive any more into that, um, my question for you, Emily, would be: whenever you think of feedback and you think of these ratios in particular, um, How does that seem like? Does it seem like it's overkill? Does it seem like it's extreme? Does it seem like it's conservative? What's your experience with feedback and those numbers?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great. And in terms of just thinking personally, when you've received feedback, and Robin, just like you said, it depends on who's saying it and what they're saying. When you get feedback from anybody, if they tell you one positive thing that you are doing and one negative thing that you are doing, which one are you going to remember? You're going to remember the negative. And so if they're giving you those three do goods and then one do better, sure, that do better, yeah, it's probably still gonna linger quite a bit.
Still got a
Um,
thing, right?
but seven, yeah, but seven do goods. Or I mean, I really like Cheryl's, let's do 20 do goods to your one do better. I think, as a leader or as management, that would be fantastic if you had those kind of feedback meetings that you're giving your team 20 do goods and maybe like one do better. That's kind of going back to Mike and I had talked in our first session about when was the last time you walked into work and you're like, yeah, we are we are up here. Like the whole team is just like on the same page. And that's what I think of for, if you're thinking about a 20-to-1 ratio, that's really that kind of mentality. Like this is a thriving workplace. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I think the ratios are fantastic. It makes me think of this connection to something that we do in our team is daily huddles. And because I did say we have multiple clinics, it means that not everyone is here at the same time. And so we do morning huddles, not daily huddles, and we do them twice a week. But something that we do is we go around the whole room and we ask, what's going well, um, what's not so well, and what are your barriers? And so I think of what are your barriers is like what could be better? What could you be doing? What could you do better if these barriers were out of the way? Um, and that's a great way to just do like a temperature check on the whole team. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's somebody's scanner's not working and come to find out no one's scanner is working and like how long before someone was actually going to say something without a morning huddle.
Yeah.
So I think they're great temperature checks. But that definitely comes to mind when we're thinking about your three ratios of communication culture.
I love that. And I think it's a great usage of that and knowing you're building in the rhythm into the culture of not only identifying what could be better, but what's going well, what's right, what's wrong, what's missing, LBs, NTs, like whatever the situation is that we're looking at it, it's a tremendous way to do that. And what a lot of organizations, when they don't focus on that, then you wonder, the people on the team wonder, okay, where's my opportunity for feedback? If we don't get a Google form once a week, or we don't have our weekly meeting, or whatever that looks like, do I have to wait till my 90-day evaluation or my annual evaluation to come up and say this is what's going well and what's not going well? Because it certainly goes both ways. The goal of feedback, it's not really where it's just top down or it's seniority. It's a slope that's running downhill. That's not how it goes. What we've got to do is we've got to become aware of what makes sense and then how we're going to give people an opportunity to engage with the conversation. What we're doing on the I'm not really ad-libbing. I'm just fast forwarding a little bit. What we're going to do is we're talking about three ratios that changed my communication, which I put in the chat we just talked about. We're also talking about a thing of two. Is it a tool or a weapon? That's the next thing. That's chapter 6 of my book. Now, this is like a promo for my book. These all are laced into everything that we're talking about, right? And then the number one thing that we're talking about is feedback redefined. It's a human pinata, and that's for chapter 42 of the book, of my book. And it's all tied together. The reason I'm telling you is because everyone who's on the call with us live, we're taking a simple 3, 2, 1 framework, and we've built every presentation that way. So there, last time we talked about the ACE framework that Emily put together, and it's three things and two other things. It's a very simple way for us to communicate. It's also easy for the summary that we send out to all the attendees who are here, all that sort of thing too. It's a great way to succinctly put what we want to talk about and have it be where it's easily duplicable, and where you can put handles on it. Like the whole thing we're trying to do is put handles on hope, right? Like I brought this hammer because, not because you need someone to show you what a hammer is, but we know when you want to use a hammer, like you can for sure use a hammer to put a nail in the wall, or even if you're like me and you've put it in the wrong place on the wall, you can flip it over and use the claw to pry it out. That's for sure something you can do. What we also know you can do, though, is you can use the claw of this hammer to not do anything that it was built to do. Everything that we're talking about that's designed to be tools, it's not designed to be a weapon. And if that's not super clear to you, just Google Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. Like it doesn't take something crazy to see what it looks like. And what we know is true is the only difference between a tool and a weapon is the intent of the person holding it. And that's never been more powerful than in 2025, as divisive as everything could potentially be, and with the sharpest tool in the shed, which is our tongue. And the words that we can say, the words that we can leave out. Oh, I'm just kidding. My feedback, schmeedback. I just want to say these, whatever that thing is. Listen, the other thing I like about the ratios, the reason I'm tying it all together is because the other thing that the ratios do is it not only says this is what I need to say if I want to be positive communication, but what it also does is then it lets you focus on what is the most important thing to you to say today. Not only does it give you more opportunity to say more good and recognize more good, but it also encourages you to clamp down on the negative. Because if you're like me, am I being curious? Am I being critical? That whole part of the book was written because of the dude in the mirror is a jerk sometimes. And if you're like me, you lead with critical instead of with curious. So that's part of the reason why this all ties together. And you know that if you've got someone, regardless of your workplace, if you've got someone who's all negative all the time, then when they're not going to be looking for the stuff that's good, and all they're going to be doing is going to be fostering or cultivating, you control what you can control, a toxic work environment. Now, there are two things that I recently learned about on how to tie this to brain science. One of them is called Broca's area. Broca's area in your brain. It's where two guys walk into a bar. Oh, I've already heard that. Swipe left. And then you go on autopilot. It's where you're not even really engaging. Oh, I've already heard this before. I don't need to hear about it. I mean, certainly coming out of an election year, there was lots of opportunities for us to say, oh, I already heard this before, swipe left and disengage. No matter who you are or where you live, there's so many opportunities for you to tune out, especially when we're talking about you're talking about culture, Mike, and you're talking about feedback. Mike, feedback doesn't start with a C. What you're doing is three C's of a thriving workplace. Feedback doesn't even start with a C. I know we did that on purpose. We're trying to get around Broca's area. The other thing, and Emily, I'm about to throw it right back to you. The other thing that we know about is not only Broca's area, and it helps you with blind spot alerts, right? It's trying to help us step around because we've all stepped in something we didn't see coming. And so we've got to become effective communicators and be able to step around those roadblocks or those blind spots and be able to say, okay, I want to get this point across, but what I know they're going to hear me say is whatever the person from Charlie Brown said. Wah, 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 wah. Right? So we're trying to avoid that at all costs because you have important things to say. So we want you to say that. Then the other thing that we know is true about brain science, and it's the reticular activating system. And it's RAS for short, RAS. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, and I never played one on television. Like that's not what I do. But so instead of me trying to convince you of that, I'm going to find the name of the guy that the doctor, the neurosurgeon who used to teach this to medical students, and I'm going to put that out in front here. But his name's Dr. Andrew Huberman. There's a fabulous video on YouTube from Dr. Andrew Huberman, and it's 8 minutes long, and it is mind-boggling. Not is it true or not? It's irrelevant. It's the same thing that you've experienced whenever you bought a car, you started looking for a car, or you heard the first time you heard Montel sing, "This is how we do it." And every other time you think, "Oh, this is what I want. This makes sense to me." And you start connecting your neural pathways to that thing. That's what this is. It really is. You'll find what you're looking for. I did not have that language when I wrote chapter 32 of the book, but the very first thing I want everyone to read in the book is chapter 32. You will find what you're looking for. And if you're looking for reasons to be negative, you'll for sure find it. If you're looking for people who have said bad things to you, you're looking for people who are trying to poke holes, looking for people who put mustard on your ice cream sundae or whatever the thing is, like however bad it was, if you're looking for people who are not for you, you will absolutely find it, both online and off. Dot, dot, dot. However, if you're looking for someone who's for you, you'll for sure find it. You won't have to look far. Some people call it manifesting, some people call it karma, some people call it sowing and reaping. I don't know what you call it, but the science behind it brings it home with the reticular activating system. And it's not a one thing, it's not a one part of your brain, it's a whole system. And I actually reached out, those of us who are here live on the call, we were all together in New York with Dr. Greg Wells. And I reached out to Dr. Wells about this and said, "Hey, what do you know about this?" And he said, "I know some, but it's not my area of expertise. So I can't really speak to it," which I appreciate him saying. And if he's not going to speak to it, I've said everything I'm going to say about it, right? But for me, it's one of those things that the more it's kind of crazy, the more I learn about the reticular activating system, the more I want to learn about the reticular activating system. It's kind of like I am the case study for the point that I'm trying to make. Now, this is where I take a drink of water. Hey, Mike, shut up. Let somebody else talk. Um, Emily, what are some of your thoughts about those two things or anything
Mhm.
else that we've talked about so far?
Yeah, I do really love that you brought in chapter 32. And again, I know this is not a we're not teasing Mike's book in this. this this session is very heavy in Mike's content, but there's so much overlap in exactly what to say content in the other books that we have both read that we like to pull from. Um, I think in session one, I think it was session one, we had talked about soundtracks by John Acuff, and having that, the stories that you tell yourself and having those be positive stories that you're telling yourself. I think it ties right in with that. You'll find what you're looking for. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think, in your work life and in your home life, I mean, if you're looking for the problems, if there's, sales are down, or if patient, customer, guest satisfaction is down, I mean, you'll find what you're looking for. If you're looking for the problems, you're going to find those. But if you're staying on that positive side of it, or, like you also say, Mike, if you're putting handles on hope for people, I mean, if you're looking for that positive spin, you're going to find it. And I think even in terms of looking at feedback in that way too, going back to the ratios, and then we will jump to tool versus weapon. Um, but looking at feedback as what's going well and what could be better instead of what's positive and negative, you're putting that positive spin on the negative by looking at just like, well, what could be better? Like it's not bad, but it could be better.
Yeah.
Um, and something that I always say with my team here is that better always beats best. And so even if we feel like we're doing our best today, we could do better tomorrow. Because we could always do better than best. So that's kind of, I think that's my tie-in with ratios. And then moving to tool weapon. I just Mike uses a lot of props, you guys, and he does it really well. So Props to your props,
Oh,
Mike.
I appreciate that. Listen, I can't. My boys would say that's bars. Emily's got bars, Dad. Props to your props.
And so tools versus weapons. And I love that the only difference is, the intent behind the tool that somebody is using, whether it's a tool versus a weapon. And that ties into our triangle of trust from exactly what to say and from Phil's work that we did talk about. And it's that that certainty that you're building with the curiosity that's leading to empathy so that you're relating, hitting that show me that you know me button, and then giving somebody the courage to drive forward action. And I think that having those three components behind the tool that someone plans to use, that gives them that intent, that gives them that positive, the reason, like it's the why behind what you're doing. Um, I think you could think about it like if you don't have the why behind the action, or you don't have, you could tell the whole team and everyone that you hire that this is your team culture, this is your company culture, this is what we live, breathe, and die by. Like this is how we treat our guests, our customers, our clients. But if they don't know why,
Right.
then that there's that disconnect. And so if you don't know why you're going to use a tool, then yeah, it could be used as a weapon. You don't have that intent. You don't have the why behind it. Um, so yeah, I love the way that you look at the tool versus weapon. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Um,
That's
it,
a tremendous way to connect those two. I appreciate you saying that. I have this thing. I'm gonna throw it right back to you after I say this too. There's this
mhm,
nice thing. I'm gonna try to show it to you. And it's an illustration of the ratios. And this is something that I keep this on my desk. I also have a version in my car of a stack of 7 quarters on one side and then one on the other. Also, when I'm doing the presentation live with people, I got some dice. They're not fuzzy dice, but I got them from the $1.25 tree. And seven, I'm trying to hold 7 of them that are all blue, and then one that's orange. Trying to hold them all in the same at a hand in the same time. Just because you're right, I'm a prop guy. I'm for sure maybe call me a recovering children's pastor. I don't know. I've been called a lot of different things. But what I love about this is this was put together by a nice lady named Kayla Jarrett. A big shout out to Kayla with the Oklahoma State Department of Health D6. She put this together as we were going through. We did some live sessions with her group, and she put this together. She hot glued a stack of 7 quarters on one side and 1 quarter on the other. She took her own money and went to the bank and got this $2 for every person in the room, and I'm pretty sure there was about 80 people in the room. And so she did this for every one of them, and she also typed up this thing right here. It's a quote from page 121 of the book. She says well, she's quoting me, which props to Kayla's prop here. One of the benefits that you have is not only the opportunity to say more good things, but also the opportunity to say fewer negative things. And
mhm,
it's one thing for you to write something down in a book, and it's another thing for you to say, hey, this is pretty good. I mean, I thought enough of it to stick it in a book. It's got my name on the front. But it's an entirely different thing when someone else says, hey, you know that one thing that you did, and they take action on it, and not only
mhm,
action, but they invest their own money in it. What I'm saying to you, whether you're here live with us or you're on the replay, you have things in your life that you do really really well, and the person in the mirror sometimes will block that shot for you, right? They'll just
mhm.
count all the reasons why maybe it's not a great idea, or maybe it's not something that's going to land with anyone outside of your brain. Please don't let all of the voices in your head, whatever they may be, don't let the person in the mirror talk you out of doing something that you have conviction of, because someone else is going to be able to take that thing you put a handle of hope on, and they're going to bring it back. It's going to mean something to them. It's going to mean something to the people that they lead. So what I'm just I wanted to give Kayla a shout
Yeah.
out and let you know that I appreciate the things that you're saying, and that also let the good people who are seeing this know this is not theoretical. It's
Mhm.
not something that everybody gets. It's not something that everybody even cares about. I understand that. However, and the biggest holy crap moment that I get in a talk about feedback is when I say, if your feedback's not designed to build up and encourage, and it's not feedback, it's target practice. And the people who have been on the receiving end of it, at least that's how it feels by the person receiving it. And the people who've been on the receiving end of that say, uh-huh. And sometimes they say a little more than that with their face. The people who've never been on the receiving end of that, they who feel like their jab is up, like I'm attacking their feedback. I'm not attacking the feedback. What I'm saying is it's likely in your blind spot, because normally when we think of feedback, we think, let me say what's wrong, or we think about grading a paper. And if you're like me, the majority of the papers that you've ever received where you got a grade on in your life, the stuff that wasn't good was all marked the same color. Um, if that's, well, how about this? Let's just put this in the chat. Like, of all the feedback that you receive, that's not, I don't mean it's not helpful, because I'm married to a teacher and I know teachers try to give feedback that's helpful and encouraging, and sometimes it's the same color. Like, just write in the chat, or if you're watching on replay, write in the comments what color most of the feedback that is corrective, what color it has been for you, the way that you've received it, and even all. And listen, honestly, the feedback that you've given as well. When it's supposed to be
Mhm.
corrective in nature, we've got a universal color. What is it? I see red from the UT fans. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So far, we're batting 1,000 here. Let me put my vote in. It's red. Yes, it's red.
Yeah.
It's red. It's red. And back to John Acuff, our author buddy we were talking about. Um, I watched some nerd. I love to watch stuff that he's doing, and that sounds stalkerish. Stuff that he's teaching. That's a better way to say it. When he was talking about writing books and the feedback that he got, um, I mean, of course, the burnt orange, that would be when everything's right. Am I right, Mark? Like, of course, that's how that goes for you. When John was talking about that, he just shared his experience as an author when the editor would write feedback in red. He said, hey, he heard one of his author heroes said, hey, whenever you give me that feedback in red, it feels like I'm bleeding out. Could you use a different color?
Mm.
And they used a different color. The color they chose to use was green. And he said, oh man, this changes everything. Now my experience is not that I'm bleeding out, but now I'm learning and I'm growing. It's a simple, I mean, it's a simple reframe. I couldn't not use a prop.
Yeah.
No, it's a simple reframe, right? Like, it's an opportunity for us in leadership to say, I know it feels like you're bleeding. It's not that. You've got an opportunity to grow. And because of the fact that you said this, these are your goals, if I know how you could help reach some of those goals and I want to help you, I'm for you. But if you don't have that relationship, back to Robin's point earlier, if you don't have that relationship with the
Mhm.
person and all they hear is negative, 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 then it's going to be really, really difficult for someone to feel like you're trying to help them and encourage them, which it could be that's 100% of your intent. There again, as a leader, we've got to look and see, okay, what's it like to be on the other side of me? What's it like to receive this email or this text with no emojis, or whatever the conversation is? Slack channels are great. They're super efficient. Are they effective?
Mhm.
What are we trading here for it, right? Okay, listen, I'm not trying to get crazy on that. It's just something that I've seen over and over and over again. And I've done 1,450 paid presentations, a lot of them in schools and a lot of them workshops. And the majority of them, when they're about feedback, there's some misconception, there's some miscommunication. It's not overtly trying to sink the sub, it's just something that's in your blind spot that we
Mhm.
didn't know. And so we keep doing the thing that we don't know has the effect that it has. And we wonder why we've got division at work. So that's the entire spirit of bringing the conversation about feedback into the locker room of what we're talking about here. Emily, I'm going to take a breath and take a drink. Say whatever you want to say.
Yeah. Well, so two things. So my background is in education. It's in childhood education, child development, and early education in general. And one of the things that was like very it was really drilled in was that, when you are giving feedback, when you are scoring tests, when you're scoring anything, and you're using pen, don't use red pen. Use a green pen. Like
Mm.
that's what and it seems like such a simple thing, but that's like that is the color that we all associate with corrections is a red pen. And yeah, it doesn't feel good. You see that red pen all over your paper as you're getting it back, and you're like, oh, okay. I definitely missed the boat on that one. And so yeah, that's something that just from the beginning of my schooling and education that I always associated red pen with corrections, and then going through and actually becoming an educator, it was like, just don't use red pen. Like, use a different color. If you're using green, I love that analogy that like you're you're not pointing out the flaws or the corrections. You're pointing out areas to grow. Um, and I think that's an amazing reframe on it. And then the other thing too is just, like when you're talking about blind spots, Mike, and talking about that, the words that you're saying matter. I mean, all of us on the call right now, we know that. And if you're watching the replay, and you're familiar with Phil's work and familiar with exactly what to say, you know that your words matter. And so even thinking about it that way and the word feedback, I mean, I
Mm.
don't know if there's a different word, but I maybe you're a bit like me, but if someone says, "Can I give you some feedback?" Nope, please don't actually. Maybe not. And I think a lot of that also just comes from like having someone that gives negative feedback in your life or that's in the leadership role and associating it with that negative that negative interaction. Um, and so I think, just as much as what you say is important, how you say it is important too. Because maybe it's not even just that it's the word feedback. It could just be the way that you say it or the way that you're hearing it, that you're like, oh man, yeah, I know I'm gonna have this feedback meeting today. And it gets you on
Right.
high alert.
And then it feels just
Um,
like when you, I don't know about your experience when you were a kid, but when I was a kid at school, Mrs. Howard was our principal. She and I had she paged me for some conversations occasionally over the intercom. She'd buzz in, Mrs. Payne, my fourth grade teacher, would you please send Michael to the office, please? And then everyone in the room, essentially, she was asking for a
mhm.
feedback meeting, right? And everyone in the room does the same thing. Ooh, I guess that
Ooh,
same
yeah.
kind of thing. And it's not good or bad, it just kind of is. So if we know
Mhm,
that is some people's experience, not everyone's, but some, then we've got to navigate around it. Now it's back to the Broca's
mhm.
area thing. We've got to navigate around that. It's back to you'll find what you're looking for. And one of my favorite things, you just did this, and you may know that you did it. You may actually just be so good at this that you just did it instinctively. But what you just did is you just shared your experience with feedback, which leads us right into our lightning round. We've got these three perspective changers, these three questions, and we're going to go through the questions, and we're also going to do a bit of a stack of these because of all the different topics we could choose. Whenever we stack these up in the area of feedback, oh man, like it's a really powerful thing. So what I'd like to ask you, and you already answered it, but I'd like for you to answer it, maybe expound on it a little. What's your experience with positive and negative feedback?
Great question. Positive feedback. When I've been in meetings before where I know that it's going to be a feedback meeting or it's going to be a performance review, um, having it framed in the beginning with like, what's going well? Like just asking that from my perspective, because then I'm thinking about what is going well, what are my positives, what have been my like bests. And then naturally, for me, I'm going to come up with or reach that on my own of, yeah, and then there's this that maybe I could do better. Um, and I think that's a really great way to do it. Um, and negative feedback, yeah, I mean, I think we probably all have experiences like that where, uh, you you leave that meeting, and just like you said, Mike, it feels like target practice.
it's something I think everyone has a story, hopefully of some both, but everyone has a
Hmm.
story. You say, "Do you have a story about feedback?" Like, oh, let me tell you this one time where I got ripped up and down or whatever, whatever. And and if you were to do that, like if we were to have the conversation, kind of a this is your life moment where, um, you know, we both work for Cheryl and you had a really great experience with feedback and I had a not so great experience of feedback,
Mm.
we wouldn't look at it as, yeah, well, Mike was kind of a jerk and Emily was great. And or Emily's always on time and Mike sometimes is intending to be on time and maybe he's just getting a little extra coffee or whatever the thing is. We won't look at it from all of the circumstances. We'll just look at it from our own lens. And that's the part where we get in big trouble as leaders. We only look
Hmm.
at it from our own experience, which is why these perspective changers are gold. They're not trying to convince anyone to do anything else. It's just an opportunity. So the first one was, what's your experience with positive and negative feedback? And then the second one, well, let me ask you this, Emily. How would you feel if a feedback session actually felt empowering and you felt encouraged when you left rather than felt like you lost in paintball?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that yeah, universally, I mean, we can go by show of hands, but I mean, yeah, how would you feel if you left a feedback session and it felt empowering? It felt like you were leaving with things that you could improve, could work on, and are excited about. I mean, I that feels great to me.
Absolutely. Where do we sign up for that, right? Well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
then, I mean, the third one, leading the witness, Your Honor. I mean, just imagine what
Mhm.
could it feel like if every day, every time you had a feedback session on your calendar, whether you knew it was there or just magically appeared, you weren't already wincing. You were already saying, "Oh, well, I mean, who knows? It could be good." Like, just imagine what that would do for the morale of the team. Imagine what that would do for the vibe in the locker room and what I say in professional development with teachers, imagine what that would do in the lounge, right? Like it's
Mhm.
exactly the same thing. Imagine what that would be like in your real estate office. Like imagine what that would be like if not only are we're trying to do good and then yes there's some ways that we're all connected to the numbers of the bottom line for the organization, but also it's something where we're all trying to really encourage someone else to not only do the good that they're doing but leverage that good of the whole group to push our mission, push our name, push our culture forward. I mean, could it be possible that if we would just focus a little bit more on finding someone doing something right and turning up that dial? It's not a switch that you turn off or on like the light switch, it's a dial that you turn up. I mean, could it be possible that if we were to stack what Shara was doing well and what Robin was doing well and what Mark was doing well, if we were to stack all of those things together and then celebrate that with the group, as as a group in our team meeting, I mean, how certain are you that it wouldn't make any difference at all? How certain are you that it would be a waste of time? Because people will say whatever they say, and then I smile and I just kind of watch and I take a step back and say, listen, when was the last time you tried it? When we ask people, what's your experience? Instead of, hey, let me tell you what you should do, angry eyebrows, finger in your face. It totally changes everything. And for you and me, for those of us who say, man, we're in on a thriving workplace and I don't have the market cornered on it. I didn't come down from the mountain and I have all the answers. I'm learning and I'm growing. What's another way we could try to turn up the dial? That's why we've invested so much time talking about feedback today. I'm going to ask everybody in the chat, like, what's so far? If you could, if you had a couple of takeaways from the time you've invested so far in your first 55 minutes with us, um, what would be something? Put a takeaway. I'm not asking you what did you like best. I'm asking you what's the takeaway that you've taken away from being with us. And if you're watching on replay, we'd love for you to put that in the comments too. And shout out to those of you who are still here. We appreciate you coming and being here for this time. Um, Emily, let me ask you this question. When you
Yeah.
think about these perspective changers, specifically, I think you're so good at the what is your experience question. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
also really good at waiting for answer. Like if that was a script, it'd be what's your experience? And then in parentheses, it'd be WFA, wait for answer. Like you're
Yeah.
so good at that. What's some of your thought process that you think of when you ask the question and yet you don't rush in to keep
Mhm.
talking?
Yeah, I think that's a really important one just with front office teams too. And since that is my main focus, is and Cheryl, I would agree with you. Yeah, Perspective Changers are definitely my favorite series as well. That I think that they're all fantastic. I think that the Perspective Changers have a lot more scope. They're very usable in healthcare. They're very usable in real estate. They're very usable in like in automotive sales, in hospitality. They're very, very usable. And so, I think that what's your experience perspective changer is it's one that I use with the front office teams that I coach all the time. If we've got patients that call in and they're complaining about something with their devices or you know, or maybe their hearing has changed or something. And it's, what's your experience with having your hearing tested if they've never had it tested before? But pausing and waiting for that answer, it's gonna give you that direction. And like we're all familiar with Phil's work, and so having that dancing partner and with the triangle of trust or even like the five-step dance. I mean, that's really what it is. Like conversation is a dance. And so waiting for that response, you're probably going to get more from the conversation partner than you would if you said, "What is your experience?" And well, how certain are you? And when was the last time? If you're pausing and slowing down, you're going to end up speeding up that conversation, getting all of that. What is Phil said, the conversation gold. You'll get more of that as you're pausing and letting that answer play out.
That's so good. Listen, I'm going to invite everyone on the
Hey,
call. I'm going to invite you to answer the same question. I'm going to invite you to
how
come
are
off
you?
mute
Oh,
and say,
all right, I'll see
just
you
let us
soon.
know which,
Bye.
specifically, we're talking about perspective changers in the workplace. My question for you is well, what's been your experience with the perspective changers and something that you've seen it really help you either individually in your current office or maybe even a previous office. Um, we'd love to hear from you guys.
Mhm.
I'll call you. Okay, I'll call you because that's the job of the guy who's.
There you go.
Um, let's go. Let's go. Shara first, and then Cheryl, and then Robin, and then Mark because he's a gentleman. We'll invite him to hop on last. So, Shara, Cheryl, Robin, Mark. Uh, Shara is on mute, but she's getting ready to come off of mute. But she's probably looking for a quiet place, and Mike didn't give her much of a heads up at all. Hey, what's your experience? I'm talking about what's your experience? Well, Mike should have given me a bit of a heads. No, she didn't say that. All right, Shara, what do you think?
Perspective changers.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I love Could It Be Possible?
Hmm.
I love so
Mhm.
many of them. But in the real estate space, um, people have so many strong opinions that just asking, could it be possible that real estate is so hyper local that this home doesn't fit the exact neighborhood? Could it, there's just so many possibilities. Could it be possible that a different type of loan would fit better for you? And so I use perspective changers a lot, but today, right now, that one just seems to be, I could ask 1,000 could it be possibles and just keep going forever.
That's great. I love that. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. Cheryl, what about you?
I think mine is what is your experience with? Although close second is what do you understand? I feel like though the experience allows them to imagine where they are, and I can have a glimpse into the lens in which they're communicating with me versus helping them help me understand or what do you understand sometimes puts well, effective can be a little bit defensive. So I like the experience word first. And I lean into that almost always with my kids, family, and clients. So
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Robin, what about you?
Well, I'm just like Shara, that I like the could it be possible? I use that even in emails when I'm trying to ask for something for somebody that's not responding. Well, could it be possible that you can send that over to us today? Just to try to get them to go, well, I guess she's being nice about it. She's not demanding.
Right.
But the other thing is I always like is how would you feel? And I use this a lot with clients. How would you feel if you put your house on the market and nobody came? How would you feel, or nobody wanted to buy it? How would you feel if you were not in Florida at this time? How would you feel if your house perfect came on the market today and you couldn't buy it because you're not qualified?
Mm.
So those are the two, especially when I'm talking motivation and trying to narrow down into motivation. The how would you feel is a great one for me.
That's fantastic. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Mark.
Well, I put how important is it? And that can be used in lots of different situations, but it cuts through all the noise because it gets to the heart of the matter, because it's either important or it's real important or it's, it's on a scale.
Right.
So you can find out very quickly where people are in a situation.
I love that. Listen, we've come to the end of our time. Thank you for being here. The other thing that I want to say to you, as you guys who have joined us on the call today, I'd like to take a picture of you. So Mark, smile. It's kind of a joke since you're on the road. Oh, look at him! There he is. All right. Now, what you guys listen? What you guys don't know is, or maybe you do know. You do know this because you're exactly what to say certified guides, just like we are, and your support is incredibly encouraging. And for you to choose to be here today,
Thank you.
not only to show up, but to remain and then engage and contribute, we really appreciate that. And we are, like we said in the group chat, we're interested and excitedly awaiting some feedback, not just because we framed feedback for 60 minutes. We're excited to hear some feedback from you on doing goods and do betters and all that stuff. And what Emily and I do after every one of these is we make a video and we send it to Chris, like we make a thank you video and send it to Chris because he's such an encourager. And typically we do it like on a Loom video where we make it and then I send it to him later. But what I just thought the idea, and this may be a terrible idea. That's okay. Even if it is, what I'd love for you to do, I'm going to take this part of it off to make so now you're going to get to be on here full screen. What I'd love for you to do, I'm going to turn this camera around and we're going to say, thank you, Chris. And I want you to say, get off of mute. And I want you to say, thank you, Chris, as loud as you want. And I'll send him the picture. And then might be the best part of his morning or his evening, like depending on when he sees it, right? So, all right. Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you, Chris.
We appreciate you.
We do appreciate you so much.
He's just the best, right? And
Yep.
so,
Yes.
in the interest of finding what's good, I would encourage you. I'm gonna send them. I'm gonna put the message. I'm gonna email. I'll put the video. Maybe not in. I haven't decided. Maybe not in the whole everybody group message. I haven't decided yet. But what I'd love for you to do, I'm for sure putting the picture in the group because we're going to shout you guys out for being here today. Thank you so much for doing that. And I would also love for you to, whenever you get a chance, to dogpile on the stuff that you find him doing really well. That's super encouraging because we all know, we all know how feedback typically works. And it's more vocal when there's something that we need or we needed fixed yesterday or whatever. So it's just, he's the best. And so anytime I get a chance to encourage him, I try to do it. And you guys, I just want to help people. I don't want to just see people. I want to help people feel seen. And you guys have really helped Emily and I feel seen today. Emily, you get the last word.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here and spending your time with us, spending the last hour. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. I love your hair.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin.
Talk to you guys soon.
Okay,
That's awesome.
Bye.
Thank you
bye
guys.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Night. Great